So, you've decided to take a job in Korea or Japan. You've hopped on an airplane, you've come to the country, not sure what to expect. Sometimes you might end up working at a school that's incredibly organized with a tight curriculum, good training and all that. Other times, that might not be the case. So what happens if you end up at a school that is completely disorganized? Well, it might happen to you. I hope it doesn't, but well, it happened to me the second year I taught in South Korea. And just so you guys know, I may be Kevin in Japan, but I spent 5.5 years teaching in South Korea. And I'm going on my 4th year teaching here in Japan.
You've been around the block a few times, guys.
Alright, so here's the deal. I finished my first contract in South Korea, went back home to Canada to spend some time with my parents, and found another job online. I decided to move back to the same city, Ilsan, which is a satellite city of Seoul. I started working at a really small school, a mom and pop kind of organization, not a franchise. Really small. There was only myself and one other native English speaker. Check this out. My son, he's co-piloting this video. So this school was way more casual than my first school. At this one, the owner and the other teachers would actually stand around in front of the school smoking cigarettes, playing with the students at break time while smoking cigarettes. I was soon told that with my classes, we had no textbooks and it was going to be up to me to go and choose textbooks, something I had never done before. I went to a local ESL bookstore and spent hours trying to find books for the classes I was teaching. But to be honest, the school was really small, there were very few classes, and there was such a mishmash of different levels, it was really hard to choose books. Now I remember asking the owner, what do I do exactly with this class? And he said, hey, do whatever you want, it's your class. Now that would have been no problem if I had a bit more experience, but I was a pretty inexperienced teacher, so I was kind of scared. Eventually I was starting to find my feet and doing some teaching, but you see, this school was going out of business, and we were losing a lot of students. Mostly because the owner, who was a really nice guy, would spend most of his days in his office gambling online. So one day the owner comes to my class with a whole bunch of board games like Scrabble Junior, Monopoly Junior, and says that he's come up with a great idea. We're probably losing so many students because they're bored. They're not having fun because class is too serious, so we need to spend more time playing games. It really meant playing games all the time. And that's what happened. It became basically a board game school. The kids would come to class and sit around with me, all class, playing board games. That's what the owner of the school wanted. That's what he demanded. In the beginning it was kind of fun, but eventually I got bored of playing games with the kids and realized that kids weren't really learning anything. They were just hanging out with a foreigner and playing board games. We continued to lose more and more students, so he decided he would come up with something even more fun. A cooking class. And I remember saying to him, how can we have a cooking class? We have no kitchen in our school. Then the owner said to me, Kevin, you have a kitchen at your apartment that the school supplies you. So guess what? We're having cooking class at your apartment. Yeah, for reals. Twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, the school bus would drop off a group of children at my apartment with a Korean teacher. It sucked. It wasn't good. The owner would buy groceries for things I would make. I would basically make things like nachos and French fries, and the kids would sit in my apartment and eat them. Very weird. Would something like that happen in another country? No. I had my pay decreased 3 times that year because of the fact that the school was losing so much money they couldn't make payroll. I never re-signed my contract. I finished the year, never re-signed, and the owner was confused and sad that I wouldn't re-sign. Well, it was a good deal I didn't re-sign because just a few months later, I went back to check on that school and it was closed. The writing was basically on the wall the entire time I was there. It was a completely disorganized school. They had no curriculum, no planning, and the owner spent all of his time in his office gambling. Again, he was a nice guy, but that was it. A very unorganized school that I worked at. Now that's one of the downsides to teaching ESL abroad. Sometimes it's a crapshoot. Am I going to get a good school or a bad school? Now, I've worked at all kinds. I've worked at schools that had great, tight curriculums. I've worked at schools that were too organized. I've worked at schools that were cluster frags. Yeah, so there you go. I hope you found that video interesting. If you're interested in finding out more about teaching English in Japan, in Korea, or working at international schools, teaching back in your native country, all that kind of stuff, go check out my blog, links below, Canadian in Kobe. Also, you can follow me on Twitter at JLandKev.